My name is Matias Guerrero. I'm going to present traditional ecological knowledge in Chile, state-of-the-art and potential contribution to improve management and conservation. Recently, there has been a growing interest in traditional ecological knowledge, mainly due to their potential to contribute to management and conservation. Here I put some examples of theoretical books, societies, labs, universities that are working on this issue of traditional ecological knowledge. But do we have some examples of conservation through traditional ecological knowledge? Yeah, we have many examples. Here I resume 3 examples at the species, community, and ecosystem level. For example, here, there in Cameroon, the conservation of gorillas was studied. Ethnobiology et al. Made a survey to 71 hunters of Cameroon to see how they don't hunt gorillas. And the main reason is because of beliefs and taboos, followed by hunting difficulties, the scarcity of the animal, and so on. So here we have religious or cultural reasons why people don't hunt gorillas in Cameroon. Another example is done by Aswani et al. In 2007. Here I put some, this graph shows some species of fishes that lives in the coral cover. They measure the mean density per transect, and in all these fishes, the mean density per transect is higher inside of indigenous conservation areas in Oceania compared to outside of these areas. And finally, a study made by Bird et al. Measured 15 sites after a perturbation, a big perturbation, that was the tsunami of Indonesia in 2004. And they measured the percentage of coral cover, and this measure is higher in areas traditionally managed compared to even marine reserves and open access regimes. So, these examples and many other examples said that we have a potential of traditional or local ecological knowledge to contribute to the management and conservation. So we do this work, this question, how much progress have been made in the development of traditional ecological knowledge or TIC in Chile as a first step to planify the research in the long term. But what is traditional ecological knowledge? Here I put the definition of Berkes et al. It's a cumulative body of knowledge and practices about relationships between human and their environment. Is adaptive on time because it's evolving constantly and pass through generations through the culture from one generation to other. One can do an analysis of traditional ecological knowledge from many different perspectives. However, here we operationalize this review and we put these 2 dimensions. The first one is the knowledge dimension. Here we put the works that focus on understanding of species and the surrounding environment, and the management dimension, that works that focus on the management of natural resources, practices, technologies, dynamics of extraction, etc. We look for publications in social sciences and natural sciences that investigated knowledge of local and traditional knowledge. We look for studies done in Chile. Information must be obtained from fieldwork, that is, not from reviews or guides, from the first source. Published on national or international scientific journals. We characterize study region, environment, origin of people survey, and dimension study. What are our main results? This graph summarizes the general pattern of our results. Here we have the decades and the number of papers. And we found 40 papers that investigated tech. 37 of them we put in the knowledge dimension, and 10 papers in the management dimension. Some papers investigated the knowledge dimension, for example, list of species, and also they studied dynamics of extraction or uses, medicinal uses, for example. It's why it's more than 40. 34 papers studied terrestrial ecosystem, and 7 papers studied marine ecosystem. This is interesting because there is no integration between both ecosystems, despite the livelihoods of many communities in Chile that use marine resources and terrestrial resources at the same time. Papers of tech are mainly from the discipline of natural sciences. However, 40% of papers are multidisciplinary, that is, one author from the natural science and one author from the social sciences. Here I put a graph that analyzes number of papers in the line per region, and we put also the indigenous population per region in Chile. The region more studied are the second region, that is in the north part of the Chile, and the ninth region, that is in the south part of Chile. We did not find any study in Región Metropolitana, that it is the capital of Chile, and it is the half of Chilean population. We did also a regression between articles produced and indigenous population per region. We did find a relation, but only if we eliminate this central region, specifically Región Metropolitana. I'm going to discuss this later. Studies focus mainly on plant taxa, mainly ethnobotanical studies. Focused on indigenous communities, and the majority of studies are qualitative, more than quantitative. 70% of studies are qualitative. So, our conclusions are, we have a progress about traditional ecological knowledge, but it's a basic progress. Why? Because studies have investigated list of species, but these studies they are not doing deeper analysis. For example, here I put the sustainability of practices developed by communities, dynamics, different knowledge between communities, traditional or local communities. Only basic progress, that is list of species, list of practices, list of whatever. The progress is from the natural sciences and non-multidisciplinary groups, despite the social nature of traditional ecological knowledge. There is a lack of studies in Central region. This could represent a bias toward indigenous societies in their pure state. Scientists are looking for communities that are isolated and with obviously traditional knowledge more from a local perspective, not influenced by other cities or urban people. There is an omission of the knowledge of people, that is of urban or more educated cities or state of culture. Local and ecological knowledge is not encompassed. This is supported by the number of studies that investigated indigenous people rather than non-indigenous societies. So there is a theoretical gap in central Chile, but we take this theoretical gap as an opportunity. Why? Because here in central Chile, we have the Mediterranean region that is a biodiversity, world biodiversity hotspot. So traditional ecological knowledge can guide conservation measures to represent in a better way this region. We found it difficult to compare because of the quantity of studies, qualitative studies. It's important to have qualitative studies, but we also need to progress toward the quantitative one to compare different communities in the same region or different regions. There is intermittent research. This is interesting because there is an increase in the 80s of the traditional ecological knowledge to then a decrease in the final 90s, mainly because we have in Chile one person who studied traditional ecological knowledge to then in the final 90s she left the study, and if we see the curve decrease. So we cannot depend on one person to research this area, an entire area. Here I put a world review of local ecological knowledge made by Brooks and McLachlan, and despite the increases and decreases, there is a tendency toward an increment of the local ecological knowledge, and we do not have this increment. We found that this intermittent research is also produced because we do not have centers or institutions that in the long term sustain this area. So we depend only of one or two people to then, if that people forget this area, we do not have investigation in this area. Here I put some examples of centers, of labs, or institutes that research traditional ecological knowledge. Thank you.
Well, nice. Are there any institutions in Chile, either in university or outside, that might be interested in promoting botanical and biological studies?
We have institutions that are investigating now ecological issues, botanical issues. We have good botanical people in Chile, but this issue particularly is forgotten, I think, because multidisciplinary groups are recently formed now, but it's mainly young people that are trying to do groups. For example, me and other people are trying to form some species of a society of ecological human ecology. But it's now the work it's now be done. But in the past we do not have specialists in this area, I think.
But would there be interest by conservation?
Yeah, many people. Yeah. Now I know 3 professors that are trying to prepare the field in the area of marine conservation and temperate forest, who is trying to do this work, but the fund is always the problem. because in Chile, the institutions that fund research are so rigid that when you propose a a research that is in the ecological area join the social research, they said no, because it's too social in the ecological area, and in the social area because it's too ecological. So we have these problems that are methodological problems.
Which is the main topic of these papers? Like, they focus on conservation, they are more anthropological, they focus on fund research, or...
I think that the main issue is ethnobotanic. Yeah, because we do have a lot of list of species from the north, from the south, Aymaras, Mapuches. Even the extreme south of Chile, we have knowledge about how they name species, birds. But ethnobotanical studies are the main source